So thank you all for joining us on Zoom this evening. We are so grateful and thankful that you could join us. This evening, we have a very special guest speaker with us, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can go ahead and introduce him and get started. And anyone that is not muted, could you just make sure that you're muted before we get started? Okay, so our keynote speaker this evening is a graduate of FSU College of Medicine who is a former STRIDE teacher, mentor, and member of the undergraduate STRIDE outreach program. His life story is one of triumph, resolve, and many successes. He has been and always will be an integral part of the STRIDE program and a role model to many. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Dr. Rashad Sullivan.
Hey, good evening. How are you all doing? I know everybody's on mute. Thank you for the introduction, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to actually have a chance to speak to you all tonight. And my plan is to just share a little bit of my life story, let you know kind of the ins and outs of how I got from point A to point B as far as being interested in becoming a doctor to actually becoming one. So before I kind of ramble on, I'll share this presentation. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
We're good.
I know sometimes the mountain's hard to climb. We walk by faith and oftentimes we're blind. It's working for my good is what they say, yeah. But I can't see with all that's in my way. Why bother? Run when the diamond leaves without pressure. With the flowers even bloom without a little rain, yeah. I hear you, and I can move if I want, but I don't. Cause I give mountains to you. Yes, I give mountains to you. I give mountains to you. So you can go higher, so you can go higher. I'm coming up on the side of the mountain. I'm coming up, yeah. Coming up, hallelujah, on the side of the mountain. They tell me that my thoughts are not your thoughts, ways are not your ways. Still don't find it hard to say, trust you. And even though I know it's not my place, to the God that made the heaven, earth, and space, I need you. Help me make sense of all this pain. I'm encouraged by the testimony of those that overcame, but my heart aches for the single mom that's trying to maintain. She probably not able, she got that cane in her veins. It's like we build mountains with our own hands, and then we get mad at you cause we don't understand that it was us that strayed away, but still you had a plan to bring us back within your fold and keep us in your hand. I know these mountains you give us is only meant to take us higher, but we love the valley, so we pursue our own desires. It's a crying shame what we do to numb the pain. When there's power in your name, they hear the sick and hear them name. It's like we fight against you like you ain't out here fighting for us. And all these trials and tribulations giving the help grow us. It's hard, I know it is, especially when you're scared of heights. And every time you turn around, it's like you got another fight. So I pray the words I speak of fruit to curb the appetite. And when the morning comes, I hope you're there so we can share the light. Until then, I was sipping from the fountain. You found me on the rough side of the mountain. I'm gone. Of mountain now, said I'm coming up,
So that's a little bit about my background and where I started and how I got to where I'm at today. And you know, every time I actually look at that, it's pretty sobering as far as when I think about how far I've come and where I'm at today. And you know, I always tell people I know that I didn't have a lot growing up, and I didn't come from much, but you know what I've learned in life, that life is truly about the choices we make, and we can often make some horrible choices along the way, but we can always change our choices, which will ultimately change our direction and dictate the outcome that we want for ourselves. And so when I think about how stride has played a part in me getting to this point, it's been very instrumental. I didn't come through as a middle school student in Stride, but the impact that it made on my life by being able to be a mentor, and just being a part of the program and how successful it was, I ultimately became that way. I had full confidence in Mrs. Anderson, and a lot of my success I do owe to her. And, she's become more like a mother to me over the years, but it was a way of being able to have access to resources. And so I came from, Florida A&M, and our pre-med program at that time wasn't that strong, but I remember being introduced to Miss Anderson as well as Dr. Elizabeth Foster. And I remember one meeting that I had with Dr. Foster. I was struggling. My GPA was pretty low. I mean, it was almost laughable for me to go into her office and say, "Hey, I want to be a doctor with like a 2.0 GPA." But I remember that meeting. She never focused on like what I had. She only focused on like my potential and what I could do. And so she didn't tell me your GPA is just too low. She focused on how are we gonna get your GPA up so we can get you into medical school. What can we do? And I sat in her office and she basically wrote out a plan for me. Like, this semester you need to have over 3.5 GPA. These are the courses you need to take. And I remember just someone being willing to do that, as well as going from her office, meeting the Miss Anderson, and Miss Anderson telling me, yeah, we have to get you on the right track. It really had a major impact. And I think that says a lot about the program as a whole, that it takes students from such a young age with just a small interest in it. It digs into your potential. It allows you to see what you can be, and actually not just do that, but help you out along the way, give you the tools, give you the resources that you need. And I think that's pretty powerful in today's time, especially, there's a great need for physicians from all backgrounds. And so for STRIDE to have a pipeline program to do that, I think it's amazing. The next thing that, you know, I want to address, I mainly want to be able to open the floor and ask questions, but I think too, from that, the hardest question for me was, where do I start and what actually do I do? I mean, you talk about going to medical school, but nobody actually tells you the process. I remember I was like a year before I graduated college when I found out about the MCAT, and I was like, I have to take an MCAT. And so it's a tedious process, but you know, you don't necessarily even have to go to college and be a pre-med major to get in medical school, which that's something I didn't know until after I got into medical school. You know, you just have to have your core curriculum, your core, you know, science curriculum. So you can be a philosophy major, but as long as you take those courses, you know, that's what you use to apply. You know, certain courses give you a background that prepares you for the MCAT test. I don't know how the structure is now. When I took the MCAT, it was like pen and paper, paper and pencil. And I think it's all electronic now. But you know, again, as I showed in my presentation too, my MCAT score didn't necessarily dictate my ability. And so that's one thing I really tell people. You know, it's a test that you have to take to get into medical school, but it doesn't define your intellect. It doesn't define who you are as a person or who you will even be as a physician. I've seen people score high MCAT scores and not finish medical school, unfortunately. And so that's just a part of the process. And going from that, you know, I tell people, think about who you want to be as a person, who you want to be as a physician, and strive from that. And along the way, you know, you'll take your courses, you'll take your classes, you'll take your tests. But if you focus on who you are as an individual, you never lose sight of that, and that will help you get from one level to the next. So after you finish, you know, undergrad, it's a matter of going to getting accepted into medical school. That process can be tedious. You know, going on multiple interviews, you know, submitting multiple applications. At that point, most people just want to get into medical school, so they apply all over the country. And, you know, I think that's a reasonable tactic. But what I tell people is you want to go somewhere that's going to support you. So you look at the other medical students who are there and see how they're being supported. And I mean, it's 4 years of your life. And so you want that support. You want a good system there. You, again, it's having the ability to have access to resources. From there, you do residency. So again, in high school, or even when I started undergrad, if I would have known how much school I had to be in to be a doctor, I probably would have thought twice about it. But you know, it depends on what you specifically train in residency, but that could be, you know, 3 years to 7 years. Most surgical specialties like orthopedics that I'm in, it's a 5-year residency training. And now I'm actually doing an additional year in fellowship. So you have to think about that, you know, as far as you don't want to get into it and get burned out. And, you know, like you get into medical school and you feel like you can't keep going to residency. So I think it's just understanding that it's a long road. It's well worth it. For me, I think one of the greatest aspects of being a physician, being a surgeon, is actually genuinely being able to help people. And orthopedics, I feel like we do that in real time. You know, like today, there's patients I've seen that we do injections in the office, and to see someone come into the clinic and struggle to walk because their knee is that painful for me to do an injection, and to see them walk out with a smile on their face, you know, I think that's just immediate gratification for me. That's it in a nutshell as far as kind of the way to do it, but I'll open the floor up for any questions that you all may have.
I have a question.
Hold
Okay.
on one second, Jordan. I'll just break down how we're going to do the questions.
Okay.
So there are two options. You can either send your question in the chat, and then I can read out your question for you, or you can send your name in the chat, and then I can let you turn your mic on, and then you can give your question that way. Before we do questions, I just want to give a special thanks to the following people for being here tonight. The Florida State University College of Medicine Dean Fogarty, Associate Dean Dr. Alma Littles, the Sarasota Campus Board Member Dr. Washington Hill, and then also the Booker High Principal Dr. Shelley. So thank you all for coming. And then Jordan, you can go ahead and kick it off.
All right. I just want to ask you, well, first off, let me start by saying, I've come from a rough childhood as well. My father, he actually suffered from drug abuse, raised by a single mom, and it wasn't always easy. And I did get in some trouble along the way, you know, not only in school, but with the law. And I just want to ask you, did those instances shape what you wanted to do in the future? Like, did it dictate, did it help you decide, okay, I got to get my life together?
That's actually a pretty good question. Yes and no. Those experiences didn't necessarily dictate what I wanted. Unfortunately, you know, as bad as it seemed, you know, going into college, I had an idea, and I knew that, you know, I wanted to try to get into medicine. I didn't necessarily know how to, but of course, you know, having a criminal background and having that, like, even today, it's constantly over my head when I'm trying to get credentialed for hospitals. I still have to answer for that. I would say it shaped the person that I am, and it shaped the perspective that I have in life. But the goal was always there. And so if anything, those became stepping stones and hurdles, but it didn't deter me from wanting to reach my goal. I remember being in jail and having some inmates like laugh at me because I tell them, you know, I'm going to be a doctor, you know, and it's like, I'm sitting in the jail cell right along with you, but I'm telling you, that's what I want to do. And like, it didn't deter me because I knew that, you know, once I made up my mind to do it, it was just a matter of going through the process to continue and to do what I set out to do. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Next, we have a question from Brianna.
Okay. Hello, my name is Brianna. I have a couple questions, but I'm gonna let people go, so I'll just say one for now. So my first question is, what is your work-life balance as a surgeon, and how do you handle it? Like, I know I've heard you have children, so I just wanted to know how that works out for you.
Yeah. So I have 4 children. My oldest is 16. I have a 7-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. It's, you know, through training, it's a little hard because you don't necessarily dictate your own timeline. I'm on someone else's time. You know, I would say fellowship is a little better than it was in residency. But it depends on the specialty you go into. You know, I'm in a surgical specialty. You know, so that means early morning, sometimes late nights. But I would preface all of that by saying, you know, you make time for the things you care about. And so a big priority in my life is my family, you know, being married, my wife, and being a father to my children. And so at the end of the day, no matter what happens, I'm always going to be that. And so I have to be present in my household. I have to be present in my relationship with my wife. I have to be present in my relationship with my children. And so, you know, I do feel that for a lot of people, medicine is a calling, and it is, but I still look at it as it's a job. And if I don't put it in its place, or if I give it priority over my family, then it will become more important than my family, and then my family suffers for that. And you know, being a physician, it requires a lot of you. So again, you make time for the things you care about, and for life work balance, like I do all I can to make my family a priority. So, you know, I take care of patients, and I make sure that the job is done. You know, these are people that we're dealing with, but and it's not always easy to leave work at work, but when I'm home, I try to be present. And so again, I make my family a priority, and I try to make time for myself too. And I think of all the things I'm involved with, the person that kind of suffers the most is me, because I just strain myself. But at the end of the day, I'm okay, because I love what I do as a physician. And again, I love being a father. I love being a husband. I'm still a son. So being a son to my mother and my father, I'm a brother. I have 8 brothers and sisters. So it's I'm always trying to be active in my relationships outside of work. Does that give you an idea?
Yes, thank you so much.
Tiana has a question for you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tiana. I'm just sitting here reflecting on your story. That was a very powerful presentation. And while I've been sheltered from like a lot of that, I've been on like the straight and narrow, some would consider. But looking at that, I honestly don't know how you did it. Like what was the mindset through really back all the way to what was that, middle school, when they said that you were going to be end up dead or in jail? Like what was it that you kept telling yourself, or who was it that was helping you get through to where you are now?
So first and foremost, and I think I spared that out. I know a lot of people come from different backgrounds and hold different religious beliefs, but I myself, I'm a Christian, and I have to give honor and glory to God. I think it was it was God's plan for me, and often when I look back, I feel like I took every turn that I could to destroy that plan for myself, and God still found a way to make it work, even in my mess. And that, like, that has always been a part of my life. I feel like as you can see through that, I didn't live as a Christian, but I often believed. And so having faith in a source higher than myself, and realizing that there's more to this world than what I see, and I hold that to every experience. I'm unrattled by what people say about me or to me. If I believe something to be true, especially in myself, that I have this capability, I have this potential, that I can do what it is that I set out to do, then I don't let anything or anyone detour me from it, or shake me to my core and feel like it's not a possibility. And when I do that presentation, to me, I tell anybody, if I can do it, I know you can. And I hope that motivates people, that you can see that what I've done to myself, and I make it very clear, these are poor choices that I made as a person, as an individual. I'm not blaming the system. I'm not blaming this is stupid stuff that I did to myself. And even through that, I was able to recover it, and ultimately, by making smarter choices, making better decisions, that's how I changed my life. That's how I got myself from that to this.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. We have another question from Joanna.
Hi, my name is Lana. First of all, I'm really proud of you. You've came a long way, and I'm pretty sure you've heard that a lot. But from like someone that just met you, I don't know how to like word it. Like the amount of like inspiration that I've gained from you in just these past couple of minutes. It's truly like amazing to see how far you've came. And I just wanted to know that if there was anything you could redo throughout your journey, what would it be? Like if there was another specialty that you wanted to go into, or if there was just something that you knew you could have done different that would have affected where you are today.
It's funny. I get this question a lot, and my answer hasn't changed until recently. So usually it's no, I wouldn't change anything. Every hurtful moment was a lesson taught. And everything that happened helped build me into the person that I am today. And I think if I took away those experiences, I would take a part of the character that was built through those processes. But the only thing that I would change as I consider and I think about it, I know along the way I've hurt some people. And so that's the one thing I wish that if I could change some of the people that I've hurt, even my family member, like I have a praying grandmother. My grandmother prayed for me, but she saw a lot of my struggle and she hurt through a lot of it. If I could change that, I would. But other than that, I really wouldn't change anything because sitting in a jail cell as debilitating as I felt that it was, I kept thinking when I get out of here, I have to change things. I have to make better choices. Like I'm never gonna make those choices that got me here. And I never made those choices again. And so I like to think that if I wouldn't have went through it then, maybe I wouldn't have learned those lessons and I'd be dumb enough to do something now. So, and again, thank you. Thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it. Thank you all.
So we have a question from Malaya that says, what kept you motivated and helped you through all of the education needed?
Again, I'm the type of person, if I say I want to do something, I'm gonna do it, even to the point if it hurts me. And so just knowing that, like when I came to medical school, initially, there was some doubt about my ability to succeed. And what motivated me was what other people didn't see, I saw, and I knew I was going to graduate. I knew I was going to succeed. I actually remember, telling people that I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon, and it was again kind of laughable. It's like, well, you're not the highest ranked person in the class, and that may not happen. And I could look at them in the straight face and say, yeah, I'm gonna be an orthopedic surgeon. And so I think if we plant these seeds in our life for our own success, and if we water them and we nurture them, there's nothing anyone else can do to not let your seed, your plant grow. And so plant these seeds in your life for yourself. These things that you want to do, that you want to accomplish them, like these are your babies, like me wanting to be an orthopedic surgeon, like that was my baby. I watered it every day. So that means I had to show up for classes. I had to study. I had to stay up late. I had to do things but it was just like, I want to see this seed grow, and I was going to do everything for it to happen. And that's what motivates me and my family. I plant a seed with my wife and starting a family and raising our children. And it's something I want to see grow. So I'm going to come back every day. I'm going to make sure it gets water. I'm going to make sure it gets sunlight. I'm going to make sure I nurture it and do everything I have to do, and do my part to make sure that it grows.
That was good, Dr. Sullivan. We have Kaylee Mays has a question.
Hi, I'm Kaylee, and I just had a question. Have you ever had any instances where you just kind of wanted to give up? For instance, when your eighth grade teacher told you that you're gonna end up in jail or die. Did you ever have any instance where you wanted to give up, or that just played in the back of your mind?
I think the one, trait about my character is I'm very stubborn. And when you say things like that doesn't again, nothing anyone can say can rattle me about myself. And to use that analogy about planting a seed, that's like somebody saying your seed's not going to grow. And I know, well, if I do everything that I'm supposed to do, it will. So you're not going to say anything that's going to make me want to quit watering it. You're not going to say anything that's going to make me stop showing up. Like I'm going to show up every day until it happens for me. And it's just, my attitude is, if you don't believe it, and if you don't believe in me, then you'll see. And actions speak louder than words. And so I'll show up every day and I'll do what I have to do. And you'll eventually see, what it is that I'm doing, whether you believe in it or not. Like, I don't need you to believe in me because I believe in myself, And so if you want to sit on the sidelines and watch it, that's fine. If you want to be a part of it and help me, that's great too. But I'm not going to stop doing, what I aim to do. And so I think is to some regard, just my stubborn nature. And when I'm doubted, it makes me like dig in my heels and show up more. And I feel like I, to some extent, feed off of that. Like it's been a rough couple years for me because nobody has really doubted me in a while and told me that I can't. And sometimes I feel like I just want to hear it so I can show somebody.
So we have a question from Jordan. He said, do you think you would have went to college had the judge not made it a requirement?
I think so. So I was actually looking into it and looking into colleges, but I think it gave me a sense of urgency that, that now it's not necessarily options like I have to. And I think before it was an option, it was something I was kind of looking into, but like when that happened, it was just like, well, you can go to college or go to jail. That was an easy choice.
Go ahead, Dr. Hill.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to join you this evening. Excuse me. I had two comments, and I jotted them down because I think I'm going to use them later. And the first is choices, and we all have to make choices, and some of us make the right one and then the wrong one. Could you say a few more words about how important it is to think about and then make the right choice?
Well, thank you for being here tonight, Dr. Hill, and thank you. I think that's an awesome question. I can go down the rabbit hole with that. But I honestly believe that our lives are the sum total of the choices that we make. Like our day-to-day decisions are who we are. And I even explain this to patients when I talk about, I talk to patients about losing weight or doing certain things. It's just like, you can lose weight. You can change a lot about your life. You just have to make a daily choice to if it's just, I tell them if you just take out a soft drink, once a day, instead of having 3 sodas, have 1 soda, you'll see a change. And I think that's what drives people to come back is making a choice and seeing the effect of that choice and, positive or negative. And if it's positive, you'll keep wanting to make that choice because there's a positive benefit from it. And again, I look at my life, I made a lot of horrible choices for a lot of stupid reasons. And it took me to a place that I didn't want to go. And when I found myself in that place, I was faced with, I can keep making the same choices and keep having the same outcome, or I can change it and I can change my choices for the better. And I think we do that in our day-to-day lives, not even just a matter of life and death, but what time I'm going to get up in the morning when the alarm clock goes off. Am I going to make a choice that it goes off that I'm going to get up and get out of bed, or I'm going to hit the snooze button? I mean, we're constantly faced with choices on a day to like that's our lives. I mean, I think people don't think about it enough, but who you are is just a result of the choices that you've made in your life. And if you want to change your life, change your choices.
I could not have said it better. And I'm an OBGYN and have been one for 55 years. And the choices that men and of course women make can change the rest of their life. And so I think, and even now, the choices that I and others my age make a difference. The other thing that you mentioned was planting a seed. And I wonder, and we're going through the struggle here in Sarasota, when was the seed planted in you that you wanted to be a doctor?
So that's interesting story. So in high school, I broke my femur bone playing high school football, and I went through the rehab process. And I went from like being in a wheelchair, not being able to walk, like having my leg. I actually used an external fixator to manage my femur fracture, which now is like really kind of unheard of. It's almost ancient.
Hmm.
Um, but to go through that process in the rehab and like that next year after going through it, I was able to play basketball. I'm not saying I was like a successful basketball player, but I was able to make my high school basketball team. And I was kind of blown away by the process. And I actually, and outside of getting in trouble and going to college, the thought was that I'd do physical therapy. I found some of the physical therapists I worked with, they were pretty cool, and I felt like they were really a part of the process of helping me kind of get back to where I wanted to be. And my freshman year in college, I remember it was my general biology course. Like the first test I took, I think I like got a D. Like it was a pretty rough grade. And I remember going and speaking to my biology professor, Dr. Willie Washington, and I was just like this is a bad grade. Like what do I do? And he said, and as opposed to just kind of focusing on, well, you need to read this chapter, read that. He asked me about life. He asked me about my life, like, what was I doing, and what did I want? And I kind of shared with him a little bit about my background and told him, I want to do physical therapy. And from him listening to that story, his response was, well, why not be the orthopedic surgeon that fix your leg? And I remember just being dumbfounded, like, well, I didn't really think that was an option. And and the whole speech, and the saying, if you shoot for the sun, at least you land amongst the stars. And he told me, well, what's keeping you from doing it? And I left his office that day, and I changed my major from, I think it was pre-health science to biology pre-med. And that was kind of the seed that that stuck with me. I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon, and it just never really, I never shook it.
Can I make just one other comment? I just wonder how early that seed should be planted. Because as you said, we don't, and it doesn't have to be medicine, it can be the pharmacy or whatever, but we don't have enough Black professionals, particularly men, and physicians. And I don't know if that seed should be planted in elementary school or middle school. I think high school is fine, but I think it should be earlier. I'd be interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, yes, sir. I mean, as soon as possible. I mean, again, it's our environment, our surroundings that dictate the lens from which we view life. And if your surroundings are limited and you don't see young Black professionals, if you don't see, and that was the case. Like I said, here I am in college, and I didn't realize that being a doctor was actually an option for me because it was something I never saw available. And so I think, had that been my experience that I saw that, that would always been an option. And I think, that's the one thing that we need. We need more visibility of not just, Black men in medicine, Black women in medicine, but, minorities in medicine. And I think if you look, I think STRIDE does a really good job at that, in going to the neighborhood and the communities where we are at a disadvantage, where there are a lack of these physicians there, that you need to groom them for the next generation. So why not go where we have these deficits and these deficiencies and the numbers in medicine, and go out to these communities and show people that there's always an opening for you. There's a way that we need more people of color. We need more minorities in medicine. and this is an option for you even now. And if if you don't see one in your community, you could be the first.
Thank you very much. That encourages me, and I'm sure others on this call. Thank you.
Yes, sir. No, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Sullivan and Dr. Hill. You actually answered Unique's question, but we'll move on to Anani, I believe it is. I apologize if I mispronounce your name. Her question was, I just want to say that I totally agree with support being a big aspect in determining our future. And she also said, how did your journey affect your mental health?
Again, I think I was, blessed enough to be a pretty headstrong individual. I would say some of the things that have impacted me along the way that like I've struggled with, is being a young Black male just in life and being a young Black male in medicine. Racism has really had an impact on how I view things, and I've had enough racist experiences that I often feel the need to combat it because I have two young Black boys that I'm trying to raise to be men, and I can't countless time that I've been pulled over. I mean, even at my fourth year in medical school, I was pulled over and arrested. Going to see my wife. And that was just a horrible experience where a police officer pulled me out my car, wanted to search my car for drugs and drug paraphernalia and weapons. And, me trying to explain to him that, I'm a medical student, where he wouldn't even listen to me, and actually arrested me, partly because my license was suspended and I didn't know it. But having to explain that process while trying to interview to get into residency and having to go to court to defend that. And I mean, that's one of many times. Um, but understanding that he couldn't see who I was because he saw who he wanted me to be. And, he wanted me to be a Black drug dealer in a nice car. And, he couldn't get past that. And that experience sticks out to my head because I remember being booked in jail that night and another white officer, telling me that this shouldn't have happened to you and that officer like has done this before and he has a history of it. And me being so upset because I'm like, well, if you know it, like somebody else has to know it. And this guy's a police officer. Um, and so what I see in the news in real time, it's like that's a real experience. And so and sadly enough, I've seen it in medicine. I've seen where physicians that we hold them to a high standard, but physicians have racial biases that impacts their ability to really take care of patients. And oftentimes, it impacts their ability and how they deal with other people of color. And that's something in the past couple of years or so I've been very vocal about because I feel that that's something we have to address within medicine to not only be better prepared to take care of patients, but take care of each other.
I agree. We also have a question from Leslie, somewhat similar. She said, how did you cope with stress and challenges through your medical training?
Again, my religion plays a big part of that. And, I feel that I've gotten to the point where I realize my life is not my own. And, again, through my Christian faith, I believe that it was paid for by price and that, I'm a vehicle and a tool to be used. And so if I'm hurt in that process, then it's especially being hurt by someone, um, then if it's for a cause that's bigger than myself, then that's pain that I'm willing to bear. If again, you know, I see in medicine that patients who we deem as difficult are just people who are hurt. And when people are hurt, they act in a way that that, you know, sometimes we can't understand, and sometimes it can be offensive. I mean, you think about like a caged animal being wounded, like they're gonna attack and claw at everything because they're hurt. And you know, I view people not as animals, but just being hurt in that way. And I think, you know, it's easy for us to get offended by that. And so I handle a lot of that by just my faith in knowing that, you know, that sometimes people are more important than the problems I see. And you know, it's when we lack humanity that we truly that that we truly are in suffering and pain. And I think, you know, that's what I feel I'm called to do. And so I feel like that's a part of who I am. And so it helps me to deal with the stress of being away from my family on call because I know I'm helping someone who's hurting. And the lens and how I view that is I ultimately try to treat people the way I want to be treated. And so I try to view myself that if I'm in that patient's shoes, if I'm hurting like them, then this is how I would want to be dealt with. Did that answer? I feel like I keep going on these long tangents, but
I think it did. We have another question from Mirandi. It is, have you ever compared yourself to others and maybe doubted yourself throughout your schooling?
true self-worth isn't measured in comparison to others. And I mean, if you value yourself and who you are, somebody else, what they do, how, you know, how they do it shouldn't really have an impact on how you view yourself. And so, you know, I would have to say not really, you know. One of the mental challenges, like I say, of race is I know my background. I know what I've come from. And so there's times where I've struggled with kind of imposter syndrome, feeling like I don't belong here because I know like what I did. And I know that, you know, again, like maybe my background doesn't afford me to be a physician or a surgeon. And I combat that at times, but I ultimately feel like comparing myself to someone else does me an injustice because there's no other me out there. There's only one me, and so I'll never find that me, that person that I can compare myself to because they just don't exist.
You're dropping some real dimes here tonight.
Yeah.
Donna would like to ask another question.
Okay, so this is kind of a personal question, and I kind of when I heard that you as an orthopedic surgeon were going to talk to us tonight, I felt that it was like the perfect opportunity because I kind of want to go into a similar field as you. So, oh, I'm sorry, was it Anani or I thought you said Brianna? I'm sorry.
I did. I believe
Oh, okay.
I addressed her question earlier, but if I missed her question, you can just resend it.
Gotcha. Okay, so basically like I wanted to be a pediatrician since I was like 5, and then I switched to orthopedic surgery, like general orthopedic surgery, because I just love bones and piecing together stuff so much. And then I was like, well, why don't I do pediatric specialty and orthopedic surgery? But then I kept thinking, well, that's a lot of years. So basically, what I'm trying to ask is like, are those years worth it? Are those 5 long residency years worth going through?
Absolutely. I think the greatest investment that you could have is the investment in yourself. And those years of training are investing in your knowledge, your skill set, your ability to actually be better prepared to take care of those patients. And so to me, I feel like that's a price worth paying, that, you know, I'm well trained, I'm well capable of taking care of the patients that come through my door.
Agree.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. Brianna, you just asked your question. Handi has a question.
Hi. I think you already answered this, but I think like I have a more specific one. Like, how did you know that you really wanted to be a surgeon? Like, I know that you liked helping people, but I like, how did you know for sure that you actually wanted to be one?
I would say, when I think about medicine, I look at it in two paths. One is the actual kind of practice and application of medicine, seeing patients, diagnosing them, giving a prescription. And then to me, the other aspect is the surgical element. And to me, that's seeing a patient and putting your hands on their problem to fix it. And so that's what ultimately appealed to me as far as surgery, and specifically being an orthopedic surgeon, that a patient can come in with a problem and I can actually take them to the operating room and put my hands on their problem and fix that problem. And I think it's quite unique, and it's, being in the OR it's an amazing experience, but being able to see those patients after the OR too, and know that you actually help them get better. I mean, like I said, that's the self gratification that comes from it.
See, because I want to be a pediatric dentist, which is nowhere near that, but it's the same as helping people. That's why I was asking.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
thank you. It really helped.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that question, Handi. And Dr. Shelley, we'll give you the floor now.
Absolutely. First and foremost, Dr. Sullivan, thank you so very much. I have so enjoyed hearing you this evening. You're talking about nuggets. You shared something I've never heard before, but I will be using it moving forward. And that was, he didn't see me for who I was. He saw me for who he wanted me to be. Absolutely amazing. I can definitely relate to that. But I have a question. As a principal of Booker High School, we're always looking for opportunities for our students to leave Booker High School and have a plan in place for their undergraduate degree program that would allow them to enter and hopefully leave debt free. So my question has to do with student debt. While you were in school, I'm not sure if you had an opportunity to be exposed to some of those rigorous courses and programs such as IB and ACE that would help with the Fulbright futures. So I'm just curious as to what type of advice you would give to students as relates to taking college preparatory courses in high school that may help them as they prepare for programs going into college that eventually could pay for their entire program. Just if you would elaborate just a little bit on student debt and how prepared you were for that and what your recommendation would be.
Okay, yeah, that's an awesome question. Thank you, Dr. Shelley, for attending tonight, and thank you for the question. I wasn't prepared at all. I'm still not prepared. Man, that is real. This is a real thing. It's like a person waiting outside your door ready to get you. I wish I had the resources, especially the ones that you're speaking about, that I could have used, that it would have helped. Again, like I mentioned earlier, I think the greatest investment that you can have is in yourself. But I think if you can go to college and get your education paid for, that's well worth it. And again, that eliminates your debt. But there's also a side, especially being from a poor family and not being, as successful and having great grades or having the resources. And I'm speaking for myself personally, that I know of a lot of people that turned their back from their education because of that, because of the thought of debt. And I tell people that it's not worth it. It's well worth, the debt that you have to pay for to get in school. Again, if you can do it free and you can do it without it, is great. But the investment in yourself, that's the greatest investment you'll make. And if you have to take out a loan to finish your education and to do it, it's better to do that than the alternative. And what I've seen from people I grew up and with people I know is just say that it's not even an option because I can't pay for it. And it's not even a step worth taking because, college is too much and my education is too much. That's, I feel like, what do you have to lose? Again, especially through STRIDE, I know that they make resources available to you, and I would definitely say take advantage of it because you shouldn't have to. If you have the ability and the resources and the doors open that you don't have to be in a substantial amount of debt to pay for your education, do that by all means. But I would just say, don't let it keep you from investing in yourself and getting your education and getting your degree.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. So we're getting close to 9 o'clock. I have one final question. In STRIDE, mentorship is very important to us and it's a very important part of our mission. What role has mentorship and having positive mentors in your life played along your journey?
I don't feel like I can articulate it well enough. Like, I feel like, the people who have invested in me, kind of like the story I mentioned with Dr. Foster and Miss Anderson. These are people who saw my worth and saw my current circumstances. Again, saw me at my worst and still felt inspired enough to push me and compel me to reach the level that I could. And I couldn't sing praises enough for mentorship and finding people in your life that could actually guide you. One thing I say that, if there's somewhere if there's something you want to do in life and somewhere you want to go, find a mentor to take you there. And it's just someone who's walked down that path before you. They can give you guidance. A mentor isn't someone who just shares their successes, but they also share their failures, so you don't have to repeat them. And I can't overstate that. Find a mentor, find someone who's been down the path that you want to go in life, and latch on to them. And I think that's what has gotten me to the place that I am, that I found a lot of, there's a saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, then you should leave. And so I constantly try to find people who are smarter than me, people who are more progressive than me, people who are doing, what I want to do. And I use that mentality in every area of my life. As a husband, let me find more successful husbands. Let me find more successful fathers. Let me find, more successful surgeons. Let me find people who are doing it better than I am, so I can learn from them, so I can wean from them, and I can follow in their steps. The road to success doesn't necessarily have to be paved by you. It's been paved by someone. You just find them and you take the path that they went on, and you'll be successful through it.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. And we thank you so much for coming to speak to us tonight. You did drop a lot of nuggets and a lot of things I think help motivate and inspire all of us, and we really appreciate it. And you also have some very special thank yous in the chat as well. If anyone had a question that was not answered tonight, Mrs. Truel is going to drop her email in the chat, so you can take that down and email them to her, and she will forward those to Dr. Sullivan. I hope you all enjoyed this as much as I did, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening and week.
Thank you. Again, thank you everyone that came in. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the time that you guys took out to actually listen to me. And I'll make my information available to anybody. If you got any questions, you can send me an email, text. If there's any way that I could be useful to you and help you along your path, please feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Dr.
Thank you,
Fogarty.
Rashad. It's great to see you.
Yes, sir.
Love you, man.
Love you too. Hey, Dr. Littles, how are you?
Doing well. Good to see you, Rashad.
Yeah.
I'll let Dr. Hurt know that you were here with us too.
Oh, thank you.
We're so proud of you, man.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Keep doing good things. You still
Yes,
writing
sir.
poems?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got one.
We still have the one you wrote for us. I was so impressed with the one you wrote for your wife.
Oh, yeah. Actually, something, I was gonna share a poem tonight. I didn't read over it, but I feel kind of inspired to share it. If you guys got 3 minutes, I'll share it with you.
Sure.
And there are several students that are still on. So yes, Dr. Sullivan, go right ahead.
It's called Tomorrow. I wrote it a few years ago, but it's one that I actually still kind of recite to myself from time to time, and it inspires me.
Please. That's great.
Tomorrow. Waiting for whatever tomorrow may bring. Sudden rain challenges what tomorrow may mean. Should we stay inside for fear of water drowning out our dreams? If tomorrow never comes, then our work today is never done, like darkness that stays because the sun that never comes. Tomorrow is a battle that must be fought and won, so we fight on with hopes that our work today endures. There's so many diseases that face us every day, but we still seek hope that we find cures in generational ailments like racism, sexism, criticism, and every ism that compels us to seek segregation and not change. We've allowed our children to become divided in all our ways, so I'll wait here today with hopes of what tomorrow may bring. Maybe another great mind to carry us through civil rights barriers. Another moment in history where we as a people come together for hope and for change. It's my hope that tomorrow comes early, knowing I could do all things through Christ that strengthens me. And with that strength, I can strengthen the hopes of others. Sisters and brothers who have lost their way. Such a small price to pay. Working towards my future because of what I've invested today, knowing I must work hard for the things I dare to dream. What I mean is, I don't want tomorrow to find me sleeping, wasting my life away, for fear of the change that it requires of me. The cost to be the product of my environment was a price too steep, and since I can't change where I'm from, I have to change me, staying in the ghetto. Tomorrow may never find me. I can't let nothingness define me. My tomorrow wants to play hide and seek. Now it is my cry as I blindly move forward, taking a giant leap. That's one small step for the generational change I desire to be. A productive member of my society. Tomorrow, look where you found me, at the front of the bus. Today is the present and tomorrow's the gift, because it's not ours to give, but it was given to us. Live for today with hopes for tomorrow, but don't live for tomorrow without preparing today, because if you do, when tomorrow comes, it will be just you, unprepared, facing today. Thank you.
Oh, boy. Very nice.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sullivan.
Perfect, Rashad. Thank you so much.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you.
All right. You all have a good night.
All right.
Do the same.